All right, folks, welcome back. This is our first quote-unquote commentary with live data for 2021. I'd like to wish you all a happy new year. And I'll have some commentary on today's events at the end. I'll try to be as brief as I possibly can. I want to ease into the analysis like I normally do. Those that have been here for a while or that have been underneath my tutelage for a number of years know that I do not consider January a high probability time period. I usually ease into it on the first trading day of February, so I'm willing to give up that first month just with observation. And if you're new to that idea, especially for the folks that will be joining us soon in a couple weeks, when you hear this video, don't let it be a shock. When you go back and look at other January commentaries, you'll hear me talk about the same thing. Okay. The reason why briefly is because I want to let the first of the year, usually low volume around the holidays, work itself out and wait for the market to give us our first pure displacements. That way we can work with the imbalance and the run for liquidity. All right. So some of the things I want to include this year when we do our analysis, I will be bringing in the weekly charts. So that will be a main staple going forward. I will be bringing in more commodities, but tonight I want to keep it brief because I was actually watching a lot of things today and I'm kind of burnt out. So not to sound like I'm not trying to give you what you need, but for now I will give you the levels that are most salient and what my view is on it per market. First on the list, obviously, as we always do, is the US dollar. Now this is the weekly chart. And I want to counsel you to look at this level here. This is the lowest down close candle, closing price. This is our rejection block. We've yet to trade down to that. That's our next objective. Now, should we trade through that? We're looking for the liquidity pool resting below here and or the old low in the form of 88.25. The upside, I don't think we need to go up here at all. I think we're going to continuously drive lower, with the only instance that I would see it turning around would be if by some twist of fate Trump does something in the realm of remarkable and pulls up a upset and overturns the election. And I say that with a great deal of trepidation because I don't feel that that's likely to happen. I think we saw some theater today, and I'll talk more about that at the end of the video, but that's the only thing that I see making the dollar go up. Otherwise, it's going lower and ultimately seeking the liquidity below this low. And should we trade to that level, I'll probably have something in line with the next objective beyond that, should we get to it. But for now, we're going to work with these two levels here, which is more than enough. Okay. So let's drop down into a daily chart. All right, so here's our daily chart for the dollar index. And we are looking at, again, the next level on the downside is that weekly rejection block. And then the old weekly low as indicated before transitioning to our daily. This level in here, I got a couple concerns about that from members, asking what that was. It's very light volume ahead of Christmas holiday. And just a run back up into all of this here. So you get that, which is the reason why I tell you all to more or less stay on the sidelines, because this can hurt you. But all it did was go up into an order block, rebalance all of this sell side delivery, and then rejected and went lower. So again, not much in the framework here other than just what I've outlined on that weekly chart, and a continued erosion for a dollar. A lot of folks are watching what's going on in the United States and in our government, and it doesn't bode well for a bullish dollar. All right, so here's the hourly chart on the dollar index. We had a rally up into this old area of order flow. And what am I referring to? We have this sell side imbalance, buy side inefficiency. We traded to it here and here and one more time, and then gave up the goods once again. Liquidity rests below here, so that's probably going to be the draw on liquidity. We could pop up in here during Asia, maybe in London. Watch sensitivity on this up close candle. That could be your bearish order block to send us into the 89.20s, 89 big figure. Okay, nothing terribly exciting in this here, except for a liquidity pool, relative equal highs, sell side imbalance, buy side inefficiency, which is also encapsulated inside of the breaker here. So we could see it pop up, but you have to refer to both of these down close candles for the breaker. So extending out in time the entire range from high to low of these two candles consecutively projected out in time. You have the liquidity pool, sell side imbalance, buy side inefficiency in the form of a fair value gap. So there's multiple things layered in here. So if we do rally up in here, I think 89.60 or thereabouts. It could be 89.55, 89.60 in that area. That could offer a run to a London session, or maybe even during the Asian session before midnight New York. That might give a small little intraday high and then start to work towards the sell side liquidity here. All right, so let's go to euro dollar. All right, so here is the weekly chart of the euro dollar, and you can see we have continuously met higher objectives. The next upside is the highest up close on the weekly, which is our rejection block, and that is yet to be traded to. So I'm watching that one, and should we trade through it? And we're looking at the old high and the buy side liquidity resting above that high. All right, so if we're looking at the weekly chart, I want to see euro stay above this candle's low. Okay, 121.29. So let's call it 121.30. So as long as price remains above 121.30, this bullish structure and reaching for the rejection block is my framework. So I'm watching and observing. I'm not trading. I'm watching. Okay, I don't do anything in January, not with live funds, but looking at this as the next draw on liquidity is, in my opinion, favorable for where we are at the moment. That changes if we take out this down close candle in the weekly. If we take out that low, then it's most likely going to want to trade back down into this imbalance right in here, which would be a return back to an old high, but I would rather see it just continuously press higher with the momentum on that weaker dollar as outlined moments ago. All right, so here's the euro dollar daily chart. You can see we've had our old imbalances. These are obviously explained in previous commentary, so I'll leave that for you to see how we've found sensitivity at those levels and trading back up. Real nice down close candle here, order block, bullish. We traded up above it, came back down into it, and then pressed higher. So again, we're looking for that weekly rejection block as the next upside objective. And again, if you refer back to that weekly down candle in its low, that is the catalyst for my near-term bullishness being put on the sideline. So what am I saying? The reasons why I'm saying that if that weekly low is violated, if you look at all of this here, it's just really textbook trend line-ish, you know what I mean? So I'm concerned that they might want to upset that. And if they do that in the present climate, things get even more uncertain for me, especially since we're in the month of January, where I always anticipate some kind of tomfoolery, okay, or just a lack of conviction on the market. So we might need to do something down here, but as long as we stay above that weekly low, then I'll be looking for that weekly rejection block. Okay, so here is fiber on its hourly chart, and we'll be looking for, again, the willingness to see if it wants to trade up into this. Now, right now, at the present time, it's just a draw on liquidity. Obviously, if we start to break down, then we'll have to reconsider that, or at least, let's say it this way, I will have to reconsider this analysis. But for now, I think it is probable. Is it a straight shot right to that level? No, I don't think it's going to be like that. But it should offer a framework to see price start to gravitate towards that. Okay, so we would be looking for bullish order blocks, bullish breakers, fair value gaps in the form of sell side imbalance, buy side inefficiency, filling in institutional order flow entry drill concept for potential studies on longs. Now, it's not an enticement for you to go in and start looking for trades, But for paper trading or demo account trading, yes, you can practice with that framework in mind. All right, so here we have 15-minute fiber, and we have buy side liquidity here. Do we need to come back down into this? Now think about what I was outlining on the dollar. So this would kind of be like a mirror image of that, coming down into this buy side imbalance, sell side inefficiency, clearing up some sell side liquidity, pulling that together with a run for new longs to send us up into it, at the very minimum, running out the buy side liquidity here. And then we'll see if we can get up into those 2380s, and then see if we can find the momentum to get up into ultimately, again, up here. Okay, so having our levels like this from the higher time frame transposed to the lower time frames, again, gives us context. This doesn't mean always that the market's going to go right to those levels, but it's a beginning point. Okay, so it's allowing us the opportunity to visualize where it should move towards. Not straight line right to it, but to gravitate over time to those levels. Obviously, if we see something technically that would be breaking down, then we would have to again revisit that and then maybe refer to something on the downside on the near term. All right, so here's the weekly chart on British pound versus US dollar, and you can see we're just underneath that bearish breaker. Okay, so we have a high, a low, higher high, and we're just underneath it. So watch that 137.10, 137.15 level. Might be 37.20. Might need to trade up into this tail on that candle. If we get through it, again, assuming that dollar weakness makes itself more prominent, then we can be looking for the rejection block here. Admittedly, I'm not real excited about this pair because there's multiple lockdowns that's been going on over in the UK, you guys know about. There's the Brexit stuff still in everyone's mind as well. It will be interesting to see how we trade that breaker. Okay, so if we do trade through it, I think the rejection block would be, again, where it would start to gravitate over time. Does it get there quickly? Again, I don't think so. But this pair, I don't want to touch it. I want to leave it alone, and I'm focusing primarily on euro. And for completeness sake, I'm going to include every time frame for this pair, but just know that I'm not terribly excited about this one yet. All right, so the daily British pound versus US dollar cable chart. Again, just I don't like any of this in here. I don't feel that it's a pair that's offering a whole lot. You can paper trade it and see if it does have a willingness to run through that 37.15, 37.20 level. You obviously can practice, but it's not meant to give you the courage, if you will, by saying, oh, I traded in this uncertain pair and it panned out. That's the differentiation you have to make between practicing for the sake of practicing and appreciating the I'm going to say it this way, the difficulties or adversities given the current climate and this market structure. Even though I feel it's possible that it goes up into the rejection block here on the weekly and that it runs through this level here, which is the breaker on the weekly chart, because we're so far into a premium relative to where it's traded. In other words, we're banging up against a pretty significant premium array in the form of a weekly breaker. So think about it like that, as do you really want to be buying when it's up against something like this? Now, if it trades down and gives us a discount maybe on a 1 hour or maybe in a 4 hour, I don't discuss the 4 hour in our commentaries, you're welcome to do that. You should be breaking down all the time frames to find one that gives you the most clarity, but sticking with what I give you as a general diet is now weekly, daily, 1 hour and 15-minute time frames. We're too far and too rich in a premium for cable to be considered a buy. I don't want to sell short, or would not want to sell short either, because I don't trust the pair. So that's the reason why I'm uncertain as to what I want to do, but I'm going to give you, like I always tell you, I'm going to give you what side of the marketplace I would favor, and I'm thinking we're still going to try to gravitate to that. But because we're up against that weekly breaker, I'm reluctant to give you any kind of further details about it because I don't think that it's a pair that I would be touching. Now, does it create a large range day or a series of large range days that runs through this? It could, if it happened. Some of you may feel inclined to ask me, well, would you have done this or would you have done that? The answer immediately, I'm telling you in advance, would be no, I'm not touching it. Okay? So a lot of folks that hear me say things like that, they take it like it's a personal challenge. When the market does something, it moves a little bit. Maybe it moves 80 pips or 100 pips, and they'll say, did you see this? Did you see that? And what about this? Why didn't this? Because I'm taking right back to this statement here. I'm not interested in this particular pair. So whatever it does is of no consequence to me because I've already elected that I'm hands off on this one. Okay. I think it's favorable to follow Euro at the moment, not so much this pair here for the reasons I've outlined. Now, here's the concern that looks very obvious now. We have a very clean buy-side liquidity pool here with a fair value gap right there. And keep going, breaker, low, high, lower low. Even though we pretty much worked it here, it can recapitalize inside this fair value gap, run out the sell side liquidity. In other words, go into this here, like it's done already a little bit. It might do a little bit more, it doesn't have to. But then run lower, trade into this level here, and then make a more meaningful run above that 137.10, 137.15 level. Okay? Because it could go either way, and everything else I've said about this pair is the reasons why I'm not touching it. Okay, but you can study the things I've just given you here. Even if it's a measure of hindsight used, we'll see what we see as it pans out. But just know that it's something you should not be touching. Okay, think of it like a rattlesnake. It's rattling. All right, so here is the British pound versus the US dollar on a 15-minute time frame. And again, you can see we traded up into the SIBI, and we're also inside of a smaller bearish breaker. Okay, so so many things conflicting and leading me to say, while I do think it continuously could go higher, it is still trading up against bearish PD arrays. So buying it, even though I think it may go up if we have a weaker dollar, I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze here. So again, take it for what it's worth. I know some of you want to be trading this pair a lot, but just be mindful that if you're trying to go long and the dollar does go lower, this pair might have difficulties because of all of the underlying premium arrays I've outlined here. Okay. All right, and I'm going to give you just a brief view of Bitcoin. Okay, so again, I'm not trying to get you all excited and get you in a froth about covering Bitcoin all the time, but I just want to bring your attention to the institutional order flow entry drill here. As I admitted on my community tab, I would have trailed a stop loss on the hourly chart when I was prompting it in the commentary on the community tab on YouTube, and that would have cleared me right here on this one. But it's nice to see how it hit this, and then now we traded up into the 37,000s. So we have a high of 37,400. So that's remarkable. I'm interested to see if we can get to the 38,000 because I commented on that level as well. But ultimately, I'm thinking 40,000 is where they're going to try to take it to, or treat it like 20,000 back in 2017. Everybody's thinking 50,000, and it could get there. But I'm thinking this is the safer bet at 40,000. So just watch that. And I just think that was really interesting to see it trade down. Now, again, these are things that I was not seeing a lot of prior to this year in this Bitcoin. So because it's doing the things that we anticipate and expect in Forex, now it's not doing all of them now, but I'm pointing out the things that are garnering my attention and it's relevant. So just for the sake of study, just watch. If you are long on Bitcoin and you've been riding this up, man, that's amazing. I would love to hear about it, just briefly, just, you don't have to send me any long-winded emails, because I don't have time to go through those things. I'm getting crushed with assisting my staff, and also with old questions and things I have to answer. But the long and short is, nothing looks bearish yet on this. Again, nobody knows where this thing is going to go, and anyone that says they do, they're fooling themselves. So just keep looking up until obviously you'll know when it has indicated it's not wanting to go up anymore, because it has yet to do that here. All right, so we are at that point where if you don't like to hear any of the tinfoil hat type stuff, or if you're not interested in my opinion of what transpired today in the United States, then you might want to turn the video off, and I will catch you on the next one. If that's you, be safe, and I'll talk to you next time. For everyone else, the idea of all of this, they stormed the Capitol building and all this and all that. Here's my opinion, and please don't take this as an invitation to debate me. I might be wrong, and I'm absolutely willing to admit I'm wrong if something comes out to be the contrary of what I'm saying. But ultimately, I got to get it off my chest, because my wife doesn't want to hear about it. So I've talked a little bit about it with my uncle today. And what uncle am I referring to? The one that got me into trading, or tried to get me into trading when I was 16. And here's my view. I believe Antifa was a large contributing factor to today in DC. I believe that they were wearing Donald Trump garb. Okay. And again, I'm not supporting Donald Trump. I'm not upset that, my boy didn't get picked. Okay. Because I didn't have a horse in the race. Reminding you this. Okay. I am Republican in principle, but I did not vote this year. Okay. So I did not vote for Trump, and I did not vote for Biden. And I purposely stayed out of that, so that way no one could say I'm biased, because I'm not. I'm objective, because we were damned if we do, and we're damned if we don't. And that's where we're at. For those of you who have been following me for a while and were watching my live sessions and streams on YouTube back in 2016, this was before I actually did the mentorship. So I was really jawboning a lot about my view. I thought that Trump would get elected, and you all know this stuff. But the things that I stated would happen in his last year, and when we went into a re-election situation, I said that he would be the perfect fall guy. And if you think about it, I mean, he's been blamed for everything. So is he presidential? No. I've always stated that I don't feel that he's presidential. Did I want him elected in 2016? Yes, I did. Did I vote for him then? No, I didn't vote for him either. Okay, so I've purposely kept myself out of these debates that I'm cheerleading, but I did openly state in 2016 that I felt it would be interesting to see how a non-politician would fare in this climate. Okay, the politician's world, if you will. And being rich, he doesn't need to be paid off to do the bidding of lobbyists. So has he had mistakes? Yeah, I think he's messed up a lot. I think he ran his mouth too much. I don't think he handled himself professionally, but I think he got caught up in the emotions of it all. And that has turned off a lot of people. And in fact, that was one of the things I got tired of around his second year. I'm done. I'm tired of hearing about it. And I was hoping that we would have a better Republican choice, but he had so much momentum. Even if we did, it probably wouldn't have panned out, in that other Republican's favor. So I'm going off on a tangent, but I believe that if you look around, folks, okay, the people that were behind the barricades, okay, they opened them up today and waved them through, and everybody just walked on in. Now, there were, and there are, clips of people smashing through doors and stuff like that. I don't believe that is Trump supporters, okay? I'm not a Trump supporter, so I'm not trying to defend them because I have a horse in the race. I'm saying that if you look around, Antifa was talking about and educating their group members to put on Donald Trump paraphernalia. Okay, so that way they can blend in on the crowd. And if you just look at how they were conducting themselves, it's just obvious, who was what. Now, was every single one of those people dressed in Trump gear Antifa? No. But I do believe that the person sitting up in that chair with his arm raised up in the air, that's definitely an Antifa person, in my opinion. But the whole thing today felt scripted. Okay, and let me tell you the reason why I think it's the case. Every Trump supporter, or real Trump supporter, or Republican, had a vested interest today in seeing the senators go in and challenge the electors. That was the whole point. So I found it interesting that when the senator that was speaking with, in my opinion, the most conviction, bringing things to light, okay, as to why that this thing should be challenged and all of the irregularities. And yes, again, I do believe there was voter fraud. I absolutely believe it. And it's not because I want Trump. And this is the hard part for you. Some of you are thinking that my interest is in Trump. It's not Trump. My interest is in the Constitution and the election process. And what we witnessed was the shredding of the Constitution. If Biden, the Senate, and the House flip entirely to Democratic control, they're going to fundamentally change the United States. And that's just the way it is. And if you are a Democrat and you're okay with that, then we would have some real arguments. Because I don't see that is the right course for our country. Is there room for some changes? Yes, but some of the changes they want to do is the Democrat and the leftist. They're just too radical. Okay, way too radical. And I'm sure some of those individuals would think I'm too conservative. But, there is no middle ground. There is no coming to agreement on most things or some things. It's my way or their way. Okay, and that's the view, because we've been splintered into two factions in this country now. It's so divided that there's no healing this without blood. Okay, and that's not what some of you want to hear. I don't really want to see it, but that's what we're at. We're at that precipice where it's going to be, blood's going to be shed. And someone got shot today, and I watched a video clip of it, and apparently it was a young woman. They shot, and she expired later on after taking her away from the scene. So, I believe that they opened the gates, okay, and removed the barriers, and I have video of that. And anybody that's challenging me saying it didn't happen, I have multiple videos of it. And you can actually find it pretty easily going on even Twitter. So you can see everything going on. It's definitely there at the Capitol building. It's definitely, everyone was seeing it, okay? And they invited them in. They didn't try to hold them back. They went right on in. And when they entered the Capitol building, they were just walking in. And they were moving the little rope things that usually guide the crowd that comes in. And I found it interesting that the media was saying that they were releasing tear gas in the Capitol building. And one of the live camera feeds panned over too far, and it showed a woman spraying in the air a fire extinguisher. Now, from our perspective watching it, I was watching C-SPAN on YouTube because I don't watch TV, but I was watching C-SPAN reporting on it, and I watched everything go down live. And they're spraying fire extinguishers in the air. Now, when we watch it from the television's perspective, or the camera's eye, and the media says this is tear gas, to the untrained eye, people are going to say that's tear gas because the news told me. But they quickly made their camera pan away from the woman spraying the fire extinguisher in the sky, not in the sky, but in the air, in the lower level of the Capitol. and it was, filling the airspace up inside the building, and it looked like tear gas, but it wasn't tear gas. So the question I raised to my uncle, and he didn't oppose to this, and this is something that kind of like got under my skin today. Why would Trump supporters, why would Republicans storm the Capitol building to upset the very moment where the Republicans were challenging the electors? Because that was the whole point today on their side. That's what they wanted to see. But everything kicked off when that started. When it started to gain momentum, that's when this all kicked off. And it just so happens that it was interrupted. Okay. I found out also interesting that Pence left the building, then it happened. So there's a lot of things that just don't make sense to me, and it just feels staged. Okay. Pence released a letter stating that he didn't feel that he should have the sole responsibility in overturning an election, but I feel that that letter did not remove the occasion for him to kick it back for them to vote on it. Okay, so while he may not be the one that actually does the rejection, he is potentially still allowing that to happen. And that's what I saw missing from that letter. And maybe I just didn't see it in there. Maybe I misread it or read into something that wasn't there. But that's my opinion. And I'm happy to be corrected, by the circumstances that we watch unfold. They said that they're going to, meet up again. They've cleared the Capitol building apparently, and they're supposed to be going back into it to finalize the confirmation or counting of the votes. Is what they said. From Georgia, they're reporting both the Democratic senators have won, and that puts again more pressure on the Republicans from the Senate. So there's a real concern for me, because I don't like some of the policies that they want to talk about moving towards, and I don't think they're good for the country. I think they're just going to even further erode the economy. Companies are not going to stay here if they're being taxed exorbitantly. I would not be interested in having a company in the United States with the tax rates that they're trying to push, which is another reason why I don't want to be doing this mentorship beyond 2021, because I make a lot of money from doing it, and if I'm going to be giving it to the government, then it's pointless. So I've made a lot of money in my lifetime, and I've made a lot of money in this, and I want to get back to my life. Things are getting crazy in the world, and I think that every one of us needs to be considering what we're seeing now. Okay, our country in the United States is changing, and it's not changing for the better. It's changing to a more violent place. And if you don't have the things that I've been talking about all this year prepared and have stored up in your home, you should be doing it, folks. You should have already done it. And if you look at what happened today, we're going to see more of that stuff, especially if, now I'm going to say this so that way we are in agreement with why I'm saying it, okay? Because I'm not trying to incite anybody here that would have lunatic fringe ideas, okay? But if you remember a gentleman by the name of Timothy McVeigh, he is the definition of a domestic terrorist, okay? And he brought down a building, killed a lot of people, and executed as a result. I think if Biden gets in and or gives up the seat and then Kamala gets it, and the Senate and House change all kinds of things and start to fundamentally change our country, that is going to potentially radicalize the right extremists. And you're going to see a lot of Timothy McVeigh type events. And that, to me, is concerning, because while the leftists are nuts in a lot of ways because they act out emotionally, and it's one thing. But when the right extremists act out emotionally, it tends to come with firepower or bombs. Okay, so to me, It was fun to watch the left lose their mind over the last 4 years. That was entertaining. But I will not find entertainment in the right extremists because they tend to be more dangerous. So, am I saying I'm fearful? No, I'm not fearful. But I do believe that we should be more aware of what we're doing and where we're at, because I think we're going to start seeing a lot of craziness kicking off. Like, we're at the Wild West now. Okay, it's official. We're here, and you may not be a proponent of firearms and guns. I am. Do I think that we should be out there touting them and tooting them around on the streets? No. But I do believe that if it's something you can do, you should avail yourself some kind of protection, because it just feels obvious that we have turned some kind of a corner that doesn't take us down a road that is the white picket fence, real nice neighborhood, everything's happy, and it's just not, that's not the kind of world we're in right now. So I believe that the market, and I'm referring to the specific stock market now, I believe that this is going to harm the stock market over the year. Okay, they may put in this initial, if for instance, if they confirm Biden, and the Senate is taken over by the Democrats, and the House of Representatives obviously remains in Democratic control, you have a complete control of all forms of our government, and they have an interest in changing some things, and they're going to be trying to fortify it so it's almost impossible for a Republican to ever win, kind of like in California. So I believe that we should dial back our spending. Okay, try not to spend on frivolous things. Buy food, canned goods, things of that nature. Just really do it, folks. Okay, if you haven't shopped for clothes in a while, try to make it so your time out in public circles is as limited as possible. I'm not saying become a hermit, but just try to reduce the exposure to you and your family, because there's a lot of craziness. I mean, think about what we just watched. We watched a bomb explode down in Nashville on Christmas morning. It's just madness. Like, think about what you saw today and how the media is pushing this. It's this, it's that. Trump supporters are terrorists. When they had September 11th occur, they instituted some laws that have a very easy pathway to remove your rights. All they have to do is say you're a terrorist, and you no longer have any constitutional rights. None. You don't have a right to a lawyer. It's Gitmo to you. See ya. The language that they're using for people that are supporting Trump, they're using it as a way of classifying it as a terrorist. And that, to me, is troubling. Not because I support Trump, but because they're saying, and they're trying to build this narrative that, yeah, we should see these people as terrorists, when I think they're extremists in their support, driving around with flags on their trucks and signs all over their lawns. I personally, even if I did like Trump, I never would have put a sign on my lawn or bumper stickers or flags, because people are against him. And I just know, and I've had people key my cars up, and I have nice cars. I don't want to draw any attention to someone that would want to do something like to my personal property. So to me, I think that if you do those things, like if you are, say you are a Trump supporter and you still do those things, I know you probably think that it would be viewed as weakness, but if you have a family or common sense, just stop doing it. You're just inviting things to go wrong. Like, you're just inviting it. And I think that's the paradigm shift that needs to take place. Maybe it's the time when we do refrain from talking about politics in public, because people's tempers are very, very short right now. emotions are high, and we've never been as large as a population in this country with a division so strong, and each side wants to be right, and each side wants to punish the other, and they're losing sight that we're both Americans, and we should be looking for the betterment of our country and our fellow citizens, and we don't. Think about it. Look at what's going on. They're like dogs eating each other. And to me, that's the reason why I keep this stuff from my children, because whether you want to admit it or not, if you just expose them to that or allow them to be exposed to it, they're going to pick a side. That's what social media and the media does. It frames your opinion. And both sides have issues. And that's the reason why I purposely kept myself out of the election, because I would be hypocritical to sit here and talk to you if I voted for one party or the other. I would never vote Democrat. I've never been a Democrat. I've never been that sided in their views. I've never agreed with anything they had. I did like some of the things that Bill Clinton did, but most things I didn't. And some of the things he had for the economy, not all, but some of them were good, but most everything else was really bad. The idea of Trump pulling anything out of all this and having it turn around, it's like it's so improbable, like it's nuts. And that's going to finally set in for people that really want him to pull off this miracle. And let's just say for a moment that it happened. Okay? Say that it happened. That would literally drive everybody on the left insane. Like, it would be like we watched the last 4 years, everything that they tried to do. They impeached him, no proof. They did this. They caused all this waste of money. It was just some nonsense. Okay. Is he a poor character and a horrible role model as a male? Yes. Okay. Did he deserve the things that he had for being the president? I don't believe all of them, no. But I believe that the left would go nuts. Okay. And it would, again, not be a country worth fighting for with these individuals going off. On the same coin, flip it over now. Okay. You have highly emotional, gun-touting individuals that believe in every fiber of their being. They believe that Trump has this secret weapon that's going to be pulled out last minute and he's going to be, kept in office. I'm not astute to know what's going to happen. I don't think that that's likely, but when it doesn't happen and it's final in its form and everything goes on, whether people like it or not, that is going to unhinge the right. The extreme right, the gun touting, everything, hardest extreme. Like, I don't agree with Democrats, but I don't vilify every one of them. There are some real characters that need to go to prison, in my opinion, on the Democratic side. And I believe that there are Republicans also that have their hand in the cookie jar that generally want Trump to just go away. Now they got reelected. They have an opportunity for them to get pushed out, and they can put their hand right back in the cookie jar again and start getting rich again. Because these senators that have $50 million, $100 million, when they're making around $200,000 a year, you got to tax that money, folks. And you just don't get that kind of money just being in politics. Not doing that job, you don't. But you have all kinds of incentives to get into that position because you're doing deals with lobbyists in other countries. So there's dirty hands on both sides, and it's obvious. You can see the ones that were saying Trump concede early on, even though there was things brought up about irregularities and accounting and some of the things. Look, you may be Democrat, okay, and you may be tickled to death that Trump lost. You cannot look at this situation and feel confident that it was free of fraud. And if you say that and you say you believe it wholeheartedly, you're lying, okay? And it's like this. The fact that they keep saying there's no evidence is because they have been blocking any real inspection of it. The fact that they had the machines hooked up to the internet, which is illegal. Okay, why were those voting machines hooked up to the internet? Why are we avoiding it? I think generally, if we want to say from the stance that the courts know if they overturn it, the country's going to burn. Look what they did over the summer. So imagine if they used the courts and the courts were the ones that overturned it. Every one of those court employees and individuals and judges or whatever, they'd have a bullseye put on them. And now we're seeing, politicians, as wicked as they are, okay, on both sides of the aisle, these people are going to their homes, spray painting properties. Now, it's not obviously, the homes they live in, but it's properties they own. And they're spray painting on there, where's my money, cutting pigs' heads off and putting it in driveways. We are in science fiction level stuff. Okay, it's gotten nuts, and I don't see it slowing down because one side gets what they want and the other side doesn't. Because either way, this coin, whether you flip it and lands on heads or whether it lands on tails, there's going to be consequences, and the other side's going to punish the other side. Okay, and that's where we're at. There's no answering it. Like I wouldn't want to have the task of trying to diffuse all this because I don't think it's possible. I really don't. I don't think we've been pushed to such a hard edge where it's going to take blood. It's going to have to become so bad that it's obvious that, they would have to stop. And I have children, and I don't want to have a country like that. And I'm sure none of you really want that. And it's important to not lose sight of what could potentially occur if left unchecked. Whether you're a Republican or Democrat, think, is it hard to imagine that type of thing evolving in our country now? I don't think it's that hard to imagine. And nothing indicates that it's going to go away, not at least in the near term. So we have risks. Okay, we have elevated risks. We have elevated concerns for the marketplace, and anything can pop off at any time. And the right kind of event that spooks the market in such a way where the central banks can reprice, we are in black swan event, still that climate. Okay, and just be mindful of that. I don't want you thinking when we get back into the swing of things, say when the market starts trading around and gets more liquid, I don't want you losing sight of this underlying premise that we could still. Now, obviously, one could argue and say, well, we've always had that, Michael, and that shouldn't be a reason or concern for us not to want to trade. I'm not saying not to trade. I'm saying have a greater appreciation for the risk, because too many of you are in a hurry to get out here and try to make millions quickly. And I think that the climate is going to make that difficult for the most part. Now, I'm not saying it's not going to be probable or there won't be high probability conditions. There always will be a high probability setup somewhere. Okay? But it won't be like when a dollar goes down, every pair goes up, or when a dollar goes up, every pair goes down. It's not like that kind of climate. You're going to have to really focus in on a pair or a market that's really showing its hand as unbelievably bearish or undeniably bullish. So therefore, you know what it is that you should be focusing on. Kind of like what I outlined tonight with the euro versus the cable market. I'm not interested in British pound. I think there's more risk in that one. And as I mentioned, I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze on that one. Fiber, I think, is a little bit more likely to perform better in relationship to my analysis on the dollar. So therefore, I have elected the pair I want to follow and focus on. And obviously, over the coming weeks, that might change. It might be another pair. It might become a pair that I don't usually talk about. Okay, but you'll see that there's opportunities to find setups, even though we go into this, or at least I teach it in a way where you have an advantage in picking a market or two and focusing there, because you can make all the money you ever want from that one market or correlated pair or correlated market. There are disadvantages in trying to trade a lot of markets in this climate. You're going to find that it's going to drain you. You're going to be in markets that aren't performing very well. And if you just look at any trader that's willing to show you their interests in how many pairs they're trading, you're going to see that, yeah, they might have one or two that are doing really well, but the others are eating it up. And what are they really doing? They're not doing much. They're spinning their wheels. So if they just would have reduced it down to the highest quality setup in the highest quality market, then it's high probability. Then you're working with a narrowed focus, and you're only in the markets that are predisposed to move in that right direction. Whereas it's just a basket approach where let me pick one of each commodity, one of each currency, and then pick an index, and I'm going to be in something everywhere, and then diversification is going to take care of itself. Well, my opinion is diversification eats up and erodes the leadership that you have in your strongest or weakest, respectively, in your positions. So I am not a fan of diversification. In the 90s, I was, because that's what I was being told by the books. I'm absolutely a opponent to diversification, because diversity in trading basically says we welcome every market opportunity, and I'm okay with taking losses in markets that are questionable, whereas I don't like that. I don't want to be touching something, especially if I can define it, and as I'm trying to show you in cable, it's a pair that could go higher if the dollar goes lower, but because we're trading at those premium PD arrays, it's less likely to happen. So why would I want to trade in that pair when I have a little bit more room and flexibility in euro? So we're working with a context and a framework and bias, but we're reducing our exposure to risk and making it available that if we are right in euro, it won't see the gains seen in its move eaten into or eroded by a weaker performing market that would otherwise be better left alone. So hopefully that made sense to you. If not, just listen to the video a couple times and you'll get what I'm saying. Basically, we want to be buying the strongest of the strong and selling short the weakest of the weak in the proper context and at the right time. So it's like the highest form of analysis. You know where the best big moves are occurring. And that's what you're trying to learn from me here. I mean, if you want to learn bread and butter setups, that's always found on my YouTube channel. I mean, I've taught everybody how to find profitable trades and setups with just free videos. But what you're here for is knowing what you need to know and knowing everything, okay? Everything that makes you a monster in analysis and that makes you a freak. You can go in here and find the biggest, baddest market moves and be confident that you've found them. You know how to ferret them out. Not just, I need to find an optimal trade entry or I need to find a low resistance liquidity run. No, you want to be really a specialist now because of all the things that's occurring. Now, some of you may be outside the United States. I'm saying this in closing. You may be outside the U.S. and you say, well, Michael, again, I'm not American, and all this stuff doesn't make any sense to me. I don't really care what happens. Trump's a jerk. He's an idiot. And Biden's the best thing since Obama. Okay, great. That's your opinion. But you still have to contend with the repercussions of what the Fed will do. And what the Fed will do will impact your currencies that you trade to and your own country's currency. So it has an effect, and you need to be aware of it. Like, just because I don't live in Canada or I don't live in Japan, I can't just say I don't care with 100% conviction about what's going to happen in their countries, because obviously when I do look at the Canadian dollar in the economic calendar, I'm mindful of the reports and the data points that are released relative to that country. And since I don't ever touch yen and Swissy, I can say those currencies don't really have an impact on me. But if I was going to trade them, okay, then I would have to be concerned about it. But saying it about the dollar is really myopic, because it has, even though it's harmed right now, and it may be on its way out, it may be, losing its global reserve status. It might happen. But until it happens, you have to go with what it is, which is impactful. So I'll just leave that with you in closing. I will give you, obviously, more commentary through my community tab as best I can. I don't want to give too many political views, because YouTube will come after my channel, and they've already done that kind of stuff on Twitter. So I'll try to keep my comments as vague as possible. But I think they'll be, if you give it a little bit of thought, you'll know what I'm talking about. But just be mindful. If you're in the United States, just be careful. Try to get some things stocked up in your home. It's just we're getting in some dangerous waters now. And while we are still looking for trading opportunities and trade setups, don't lose sight of the real dangers that are starting to mount up, being in the public now, because there's a lot of people that are upset on both sides. They're angry on both sides, even the left, because they won. They're still angry at everyone else because they're being prolonged in establishing everything. So that's pent up hostility. And the right now is steaming. Believe me, they're boiling, and it's going to have a consequence at some point. Some people with less character and morals are going to be subject to their emotions and a weakened state of mind, and they might do something, and it would be terrible for any of us in this community, or anyone really. I don't want to make it sound like only people here are important or special, but it would be terrible for me to find out that someone that I know fell victim to some nutcase on either side. So we're a family here, and I try to be a support to every one of you. I try to encourage you, and also warn you when there's things that, if there's something that is considerable in terms of risk, I try to do my best to elaborate as to why you should take consideration of it. But right now, it's just madness, and I don't see it turning around. I don't see it changing, depending on what they determine tonight. I don't even know, because I've been talking to you for a while. I haven't been able to see what's going on. Usually I make multiple copies and put them in user groups. I'm just doing one user group tonight just to save time. And I'm going to go back to monitoring, what's going on. Hopefully, nothing goes worse than what we've seen today. But, when it gets dark, people tend to do a lot more unsavory things. So we'll see what happens. But other than that, I'm going to close here, and I will touch base with you again on Friday evening in our weekend commentary. I'll have a price action lesson in that one as well. Until then, be safe.